Her church meeting ran late. I followed her car. Saw her kiss the deacon. And that's when the halo fell. I always thought church girls were the safe bet. You know, the kind of woman raised on hymns and Sunday sermons, the kind who talks about values, and faith, and keeping marriage sacred. That's how I saw Anna when we met. She sang in the choir, volunteered for every fundraiser, and could quote half the Psalms from memory. I wasn't a church guy myself, but there was something about her calm, radiant presence that pulled me in. We married 3 years later. I worked in IT, she was a part-time Sunday school teacher and part-time receptionist. We had a small apartment, a modest life, and for a while, I thought we were building something pure. But looking back now, the first cracks were there. Tiny hairline fractures I ignored because I believed in her more than I believed in my own instincts. It started with the texts. At first, I'd see her smile at her phone and figured it was one of her girlfriends from church. Then, the phone started going face down whenever I walked in. She claimed it was just a habit, to protect the screen from scratches. I believed her. Next came the late committee meetings. She'd tell me the pastor asked her to stay late to help plan youth group events or organize donations. I never questioned it. Why would I? She was Anna, the woman who prayed before every meal and left little Bible verses in my lunchbox. But one Thursday night in early spring, she came home well past midnight, hair a mess, lipstick faded. She said they'd been sorting boxes in the church basement. I remember thinking it was odd that her perfume smelled stronger than when she left. That was the night the halo slipped, just enough for me to notice. 2 days after that late night, church basement, shift, I was fixing our printer when Anna's phone lit up on the kitchen counter. Normally I wouldn't touch it, but the notification preview caught my eye. It wasn't a name I recognized, just the letter M and a heart emoji. The message said, "Same time next week? I'll bring the wine." Winky face. My stomach twisted. Wine? At church? I tapped the phone before my brain could argue. It opened to a thread of messages that read nothing like the clean, wholesome image Anna carried around. There were inside jokes, teasing remarks, and a photo of 2 wine glasses next to what looked like the inside of a dimly lit office, not a church hall. I scrolled up. The earliest messages were casual, friendly. Then, over weeks, they turned warmer, more personal, then flirtatious. My hands were shaking when I heard the bathroom door open upstairs. I locked the phone and set it back exactly as I found it, heart hammering. That night, while she was in the shower, I sat on the couch replaying everything, the committee meetings, the perfume, the way she'd started wearing new dresses on days she said she was just at church. The worst part? I didn't have solid proof. The text hinted, but didn't scream. Affair. If I confronted her now, she'd deny it, cry, and make me the bad guy. So I made a choice. I'd stop being the trusting husband. I'd start being the quiet observer. If Anna had a secret life, I was going to see it for myself. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little heart emoji in her messages. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I wouldn't just wait for the truth to fall into my lap. I'd pull it out into the light. First, I started paying attention to her church schedule. I asked casual questions. What's tonight's meeting about? Who else will be there? Pretending to be just a curious husband. She answered without hesitation, as if she'd rehearsed the script. Always the same names, the same safe explanations. Next, I checked her car's mileage. When she claimed she was at the church 2 miles away, the odometer suggested otherwise, 10, sometimes 15 miles more than it should have been. One evening I drove by the church during one of her late planning sessions. The parking lot was nearly empty. Her car wasn't there. My pulse was so loud in my ears I almost didn't hear the voice in my head saying, "Don't blow it yet. You need her cornered." That's when I decided. The next time she had a meeting, I'd follow her. Quietly. Carefully. It wasn't about revenge, not yet. It was about certainty. Because if Anna, the woman who swore before God and our families to love me, was spending her nights somewhere else with someone else, I wasn't just going to find out. I was going to make sure she couldn't lie her way out of it. The following Thursday, Anna kissed me on the cheek and said, "Don't wait up. It's going to be a long one, we're planning the Easter outreach." I smiled, told her to have fun, and the moment her car turned the corner, I grabbed my keys. I stayed 2 cars behind her the whole way, keeping my headlights low. At first, she headed in the direction of the church, and for a moment I wondered if I'd been losing my mind. But then, just before the turn to the church parking lot, she kept going, straight through the intersection. 5 more blocks. Then a left into a quieter part of town. My chest tightened. She slowed near a small, 2-story building I didn't recognize, not an office, not a store. The lights were low except for one warm glow spilling out of a window upstairs. She parked. And then I saw him. A tall man in a button-up shirt stepped out of the doorway, smiling like he'd been waiting for her all day. She got out, smoothed her dress, and let him wrap his arms around her like it was the most natural thing in the world. I sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. This wasn't just a friend. This wasn't church business. This was intimacy. Comfort. Familiarity. They disappeared inside together. The upstairs light stayed on. I didn't need to guess what was happening in that room. But I also wasn't done watching. I stayed parked half a block down, engine off, every nerve in my body on high alert. I needed a name, a face I could put to the betrayal. About an hour later, the door opened again. Anna stepped out first, hair slightly mussed, cheeks flushed. Behind her came the man, locking the door with an easy smile like nothing about this was wrong. That's when I recognized him. Mark Davis. He wasn't just some guy. He was a deacon at her church, the kind who shook hands with everyone, who read the scripture during Sunday service, who people trusted with their kids in youth group. And here he was, standing in the doorway of what I now realized was an upstairs apartment, watching my wife walk down the steps with that same warm smile he gave everyone on Sunday mornings. They talked quietly by her car for a moment. He touched her arm. She laughed softly. Then she leaned in and kissed him. Not a quick peck. Not a slip-up. A slow, deliberate kiss like they'd done it 100 times before. I felt my pulse in my teeth. My hands were trembling so bad I had to steady them against the steering wheel. When she drove off, I didn't follow her home. I followed him. I wanted to know everything about the man who had his hands on my wife while preaching righteousness to the congregation. What I found that night made me realize this affair wasn't some sudden lapse in judgment. It was carefully built, brick by brick, under the cover of hymns and prayer. Mark drove a few miles to a modest brick house in a quiet neighborhood. No wife. No kids. At least not living with him. His driveway was empty except for his car, and the blinds were drawn tight. I sat across the street, jotting down the address, my mind spinning. The quiet way they interacted, the comfort, it wasn't new. This was the kind of ease that only comes with time. The next morning, after Anna left for work, I sat down at my laptop. If this had been going on for a while, there'd be signs. I started with her phone records. Not the texts, I already knew she deleted those. The call logs. And there it was, a number popping up almost daily, usually in the late evening when she claimed she was reading, or planning next week's lesson. Cross-checking that number with a simple reverse lookup gave me the hit I expected, Mark Davis. Digging deeper, I remembered the church bulletin that listed every upcoming event. I found the last few months' bulletins online, and something clicked. Every time there was an off-site planning meeting, she was gone longer than any other member listed in the committee. And conveniently, Mark's name was always part of those events too. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a pattern. A careful, deliberate use of her church work as cover for an affair. That's when I decided I wasn't going to just confront her with words. I was going to walk her right into her own lie and let her choke on it. The next committee meeting was on a Tuesday evening. According to Anna, they were finalizing plans for a youth retreat and it might run late. I told her no problem, I'd order pizza, watch some TV, maybe doze off on the couch. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and left in a swirl of perfume. As soon as she turned the corner, I grabbed my keys. This time, I didn't plan to sit in my car like a bystander. I wanted undeniable proof, the kind she couldn't spin into a misunderstanding. I followed her to the same part of town as before, the same narrow street with that upstairs apartment. She parked, checked her phone, and went inside without even glancing over her shoulder. I waited 10 minutes, letting them get comfortable. Then I slipped out of my car and crossed the street, my phone camera already recording. Through the thin curtains, the scene was clear enough. Wine glasses on the coffee table, her laughing with her head thrown back, his hand resting far too comfortably on her thigh. I caught it all on video. My hands were steady this time. No shaking, no hesitation. I wasn't a man watching his world collapse anymore. I was a man collecting evidence. When I got back to my car, I didn't drive away. I stayed there, watching the light in that upstairs window, rehearsing in my head the exact words I'd use when I ended this farce of a marriage. And the best part? She'd have no idea I was coming. I didn't wait days or weeks. I confronted her that night. I drove home before she did, sitting at the kitchen table with the lights low, my phone on the table in front of me. When Anna walked in, her cheeks were flushed and her hair slightly tousled, just like the last time. "Long meeting?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Yeah," she said, avoiding my eyes as she set her purse down. "We got a lot done." "Good," I replied, tapping my phone screen so the video came to life. The sound of her laughter, the image of her leaning into Mark's touch, it all played in perfect clarity between us. Her face went pale instantly. She didn't even try to sit down. Where did you get that?" she stammered. "I was there, Anna. Outside his apartment. Watching you drink, laugh, and let him touch you like I don't exist. It's not what it looks like," she said automatically, the most tired cliché in the world. "Oh, really?" "Because it looks exactly like my wife having an affair with a church deacon." She started crying, reaching out toward me. I pushed my chair back. "Don't," I said. "Save it for someone who still believes you have a halo." For a moment, the room was dead silent except for her shaky breathing. Then I stood, grabbed the overnight bag I'd packed earlier, and headed for the door. Her voice followed me into the hallway. "Please, we can fix this." But I didn't even turn around. The next morning, I wasn't home when Anna woke up. I'd spent the night at my brother's place, and by mid-morning I was sitting in my car outside the church. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I just waited until I saw Mark pull into the lot, that same smug, calm demeanor on his face. He greeted a few people, all smiles, until he spotted me leaning against my car. His smile faltered. I walked toward him slowly, phone in hand. "We need to talk." He glanced around nervously. "Now's not a good time. It's the only time you're getting. I know about you and Anna. I have video. You've been using your position here as cover, and I think the congregation would be real interested in seeing that." The blood drained from his face. "Look," he began, but I cut him off. "No. You look. I'm not here to fight you. I'm not here to give you a chance to apologize. I'm here to tell you that if you so much as breathe near my wife again, every elder in this church gets a copy of what I've got. And trust me, your career, your reputation, it's over." His jaw tightened, but he nodded once. "It's done," he muttered. "Good," I said, stepping back. "Because from now on, your name doesn't get spoken in my house, and mine doesn't get spoken in yours." I left him standing in the parking lot, pale and stiff like a man who'd just realized the pulpit could be ripped out from under him. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were signed. No drawn-out drama, no marriage counseling charade. I gave Anna the choice, sign now, or deal with everything I had in court. She sighed. She tried the usual tricks in between, late-night texts about remembering our good times, phone calls where she cried and promised she'd come back to God and make it right. But I'd stopped listening the moment I saw her with Mark through that curtain. The church hasn't made a public scene yet, but word travels fast in small congregations. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Mark stepped down from leadership to focus on personal matters. Translation: the walls are closing in. As for me, I've been living in a small rental near my brother's place. It's quiet. No perfume hanging in the air when I walk in, no late-night meetings to wonder about. Just peace. Do I still think about her? Sure. You don't erase years overnight. But when I do, it's not the smiling woman in the choir robe I see. It's the one in the dim apartment, laughing with a man who preached honesty on Sunday morning and broke every vow behind closed doors. I used to think church girls were safe. Now I know better. A halo doesn't mean anything if the head underneath is already bent toward the shadows. And me? I'm done chasing angels who've already chosen to fall.